The timer has started on the St. Louis Blues. And already, we are 2 seasons from their Stanley Cup win. 2 seasons have already passed since the St. Louis Blues went from very last to very first in winning the Stanley Cup. It's crazy to think of what's happened in that time. That was the last normal year.
Yep.
But the St. Louis Blues have gone through some major changes. There's no question this is a strong team, but let me run you through some of this stuff. Let's start with the goaltender. Jordan Binnington, whose save percentage has dropped in every season he's played in. He's down a full 10 points from the Stanley Cup season. So his goals against average is up over 260, and he had an awful playoff last year. Listen to these numbers. In the playoffs last year, he was a 359 goals against average. Okay, a lot of people say goals against average isn't a good stat. Well, how about this? A 750 save percentage.
In the entire playoffs?
In the playoffs.
You're joking.
Remember, it was a 4-game sweep.
Yes. Now
Against Colorado.
Yeah.
Wasn't there like a 30-point gap between them?
Yes. Yeah.
Like
it was a little unfair. But again, this team won the Cup a couple years ago. Yes, they don't have Pietrangelo anymore, but there was other players that were supposed to come in and fill that gap. And Jordan Binnington, I think this starts with him. The St. Louis Blues are as good as Jordan Binnington.
See, so I'm going to spoil this because at the end we usually do. You don't have to spoil yours, but at the end we usually do where we think they're going to end up in the division. And I'm bringing this up because I put 6th. And
the Blues?
And I looked at Adam. I did the same thing in my head. I looked down. I went, the Blues though, the Blues, and it's because I have it in my head that it's 2019, but they've lost something there. They had a magical goaltender who's still there, but no longer magical. He could bounce back. He's a young guy. And they don't have their captain in Alex Pietrangelo, who in that series against the Montreal Canadiens, even though Vegas lost, I got an entirely new appreciation for that player.
Right.
He was unbelievable. Yep. He was far and away Vegas's best player. And then you go from world-beating goalie and that guy to having neither.
I'm going to spoil mine as well. I had the exact same outlook on the St. Louis Blues. I have them
Really?
6th in the division. I look at, and you name the guys they lost, and then you look at the other pieces they lost in Vince Dunn and Jaden Schwartz.
They seem to have just poisoned the relationship with Vince Dunn, right?
Right. But they're just removing all these pieces from the roster, and they bring in Pavel Brusnevich.
That's a good acquisition.
Yeah.
Definitely. He had a great season in New York last year. They bring in Brendan Saad, who's probably...
Another good acquisition. They'll score.
They'll definitely score. But I don't see the team returning to form with a goaltender who's really shaky and asking for, hey, we want 2019 luck again.
They'll be really fun to watch. I think it'll be high event games.
I think Binnington is again, I bring it back to him because he is so pivotal to this. I mean, he signed his extension. He's making a lot of money now. Obviously, there's a little bit of pressure that comes with that. But last year...
If he does well, it changes everything.
100%.
Yeah.
Last year, Binnington was doing clown show stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
like
was that?
throwing air punches at people. And St. Louis Blues fans get on me every time I make fun of them for this. But really, it looks... If you're not a Blues fan... It's clown shit. It just is.
One day someone's going to grab him and maul him.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And normally you don't do that to goalies, but yeah, like he's out there like out of his crease, throwing fake. And it's not the fake punch. That's the thing. It's the mentality that goes into the fake punch. It's this guy he's always had a bit of a chip on his shoulder. Mm-hmm. When you win, people respect that. But when you start losing and you do stuff like that, people start to go, okay, what is going on?
That was the interesting thing. He never really lost that whole season.
No.
Yeah.
That whole magical run.
In a way, Binnington's unproven because the one season he had was a magical run, and that was the first time he had ever done it. That was the first time he's ever allowed to be a starting goalie in the National Hockey League, and he was unbelievable.
But he had a good follow-up the next year. But last year is where it felt like their wheels fell off.
You know what I just realized? Jesse just helped me realize this. This is his first 82-game National Hockey League season.
Mm-hmm. Ooh.
Because he came up partway through 18-19. Mm-hmm. 19-20 was interrupted. 2021 was interrupted. Holy cow. I didn't even realize about this guy. It feels like he's been there forever.
Let me ask you guys a question. You guys watch, obviously, I know Steve did because he streamed it for Sportsnet. How much of the Montreal Vegas series did you watch?
All of it.
All of it.
All of it.
There's nothing else going on.
Who was? Yeah, there really was nothing else going on. Who was the difference maker on Vegas? Who was the only really effective player for Vegas?
Petra.
Chandler Stevenson.
Chandler Stevenson, who was out in the first game. Alex Pietrangelo.
Boy, I really thought he would make a difference, and he did not.
Yeah. Well, because they, every team that played Montreal had to lose their top center. That was the rule.
It was staggering.
Alex Pietrangelo, I think. I mean, you remember the sweepstakes last summer? It was the middle of COVID. I was like, oh, maybe the Leafs will get him. Yeah, right. But Alex Pietrangelo, I feel like the St. Louis Blues, and I feel like Doug Armstrong, too close to the painting to see the full picture. You cannot just replace that kind of talent. And we saw that. When the Blues are just not scary anymore. They're just not scary without him.
That's a great way of putting it.
And you look at what Montreal shut down last year. They shut down Stone. They shut down Pacioretty, Chandler Stevenson, William Karlsson, who had a 40-goal year. I mean, there's some great offensive talent on the Vegas Golden Knights, and they could not score a goal against Montreal. The only guy who made anything happen on offense, Alex Pietrangelo.
The Blues have been kind of by committee for a few years. David Perron was their leading scorer, over a point a game.
Yep.
He's aging like a fine wine. O'Reilly was second with 54 points. They lose Hoffman, but they get Saad. They get Buchnevich. That's not really breakthrough scoring there, but it's good. It's solid.
Manageable.
Tarasenko, they're the biggest wild card maybe in the West, in that what does Tarasenko still have? He could still get traded. By the way, I think they were really smart to
I was about to say, we've talked about, 7 minutes, and we've yet to bring up that their best player currently on the roster requested a trade 2 months ago.
Yep.
And the GM just said no.
Nope.
And we don't know how that's going to play out.
Well, from what we hear, the St. Louis Blues want him gone too. They
Yeah,
want a divorce.
There's no dance partner.
Oh, really?
No, yeah, they want. Well, I heard that there was, but the difference was that Doug Armstrong's like, well, he's worth more than that, and everybody's saying, listen, yes, he's Vlad Tarasenko, but he had a wrist injury, and what's he known for?
Well, I think it was wrist and shoulder.
Wrist and shoulder. It was wrist and shoulder. That's right. So, what's he known for?
Yeah.
Can he shoot? He's making $7 million.
But
am I supposed to just give up a pile of assets and hope the guy can shoot the puck?
And why does he want out of there? Why does your best player want out of this team that won a Stanley Cup 2 years ago?
he doesn't like the way his medicals were handled.
Is that simply it?
Well, I'm sure it's among several factors, right? But
Wow.
that guys don't like when you mess with their body. Like, I remember Sidney Crosby. There was a time where there were rumors he was very disenchanted with Pittsburgh, and you could hardly blame him for what he went through. It's two enormous wild cards there with Tarasenko and with Binnington. And in another season preview video where we were talking about the Minnesota Wild, we were talking about all the big fish, the big splashes they could do in the supposed go for it year. Tarasenko makes a lot of sense, and if you're the Blues, you're going, no friggin' way. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm
not to a
sending
division
him to the-
rival.
I'm not sending him to the Minnesota Wild.
Unless they find out halfway through the year that they just don't have it. And then all of a sudden it's like, trade him to whoever gives you the most.
There's too many question marks here for me to be like, oh, St. Louis is going to make the playoffs, or I have them competing in the Central. I have them towards the bottom for all of these question marks.
Adam brings up a great point. So the team that finished last, or didn't finish last, the team that was in last to begin 2019, they did not blow it up. And I'd be curious to know why. Or was it just pure luck? Was it pure luck that they didn't trade Parayko, trade Pietrangelo at that
Because they
deadline,
were in
trade
last in January.
They were last in January.
Place.
Got lucky.
No one had ever dug themselves out of that hole. Did they see something in that team? Or had they just not gotten to it yet and they got hot? Because this year, I wonder what happens if they're in the basement again.
Do they stick around and be like, we did this once before?
I mean, 2 weeks out from the deadline, you might be screwed. 2 weeks.
Well, so, okay, with 20 seconds to go, I'll tell you this. My pick originally was for them to finish third.
Wow.
And then I looked at the division, And I also have the St. Louis Blues at 6th place. in
No,
the
you
division.
can't do that, Adam.
I know.
Look, 0 stones on this guy.
I
Can't
know.
stand by his pick.
That's no. It was like when I looked at it last night. I'm like, that they could be 3rd. They could, but I think they're 6th.
If things go well for them, yeah.
Anybody could be 3rd.